Thank you to the fabulous Dali Museum, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Hank Heim as he will bring greetings to us. What a wonderful place to showcase the visual and performing arts in Pinellas counties and in Pinellas County Schools, and we are so grateful. Dr. Heim, please come forward and bring us greetings from the wonderful Dali Museum. Please give it up for Dr. Heim.
How wonderful to be graced with that musical performance. Once again, thank you, you wonderful students. I'm Hank Heim, and I am the director of the Dali Museum, and we are a learning institution. I wanted to single out Dr. Kim McQuarrie, our director of education here. Kim. And it's so wonderful to see so many teachers here in the audience tonight in this Listen and Learn. We're very honored to have Kevin Hendrick, the superintendent of Pinellas Schools, and the board of education here. Laura Hine, the chair, Don Peters, Lisa Kane. Thank you for being with us tonight at the museum. We have been fortunate, as our community is, in having elected to vote positively on that referendum that has brought so much resource to all that we aspire to do. The Dali Museum has been a partner with Pinellas educational initiatives for many years, and they have accelerated. We have a number of programs I just want to remind you of. We have the Junior Docents program that we run, and there are scholarships for your students in this. We have the Dali Mobile, which visits every elementary school in Pinellas County, bringing lessons of art and its relation to critical thinking, proportion, mathematics, and science. We have the Student Surrealist Art Competition, that we work with the educators of this community in as well. It wouldn't be the initiative that it is, it wouldn't be the undertaking that it is without the dedication of a school board, of the leaders in learning, and the educators who give us amazing things like this performance tonight. So we honor that, and we honor the open forum of listening and learning that we are a part of tonight. So thank you very much for being here, and I'd like to ask Jane Lucas, who will moderate this, to come back forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Give it up for Dr. Heim. Again, I think I'm going to take it from here. And thank you once again to the Dali Museum and to our student musicians. There just couldn't be a better place to showcase our students, as I said before. And I hope you had the opportunity as you were walking in to see the incredible artwork, the visual arts from the Pinellas County Schools students. And again, what a great way to come into this beautiful venue and with a session and focus on the arts, and then to have our scholar performing artists with us this evening. I am Dr. Jane Lucas, the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Pinellas County Schools, and I am delighted to be here with you tonight to be host and moderator this evening. The purpose of the Listen and Learn series is to provide the opportunity for stakeholders of Pinellas County Schools to engage with the school board, superintendent, and district leadership to promote continuous improvement for our students, families, staff, and community. Over the last 2 years, the board and the superintendent committed to continuing the Listen and Learn sessions as they represent their promise to be visible in the community as we continue to strengthen partnerships both as a district and within our school communities. This school year, the sessions have specific areas of focus. I practice saying that, specific areas of focus, so that the superintendent and board hear directly from stakeholders regarding areas of interest. PCS Community Listen and Learn sessions are open to all stakeholders, students, families, staff, partners, and community members. To start things off, I want to give our board members and superintendent the opportunity to introduce themselves and welcome our stakeholders here tonight. School Board Chair Hine, would you please begin the introductions?
Yes, I'm happy to. Good evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out tonight. My name is Laura Hine. I currently serve as chairperson of the Pinellas County School Board. I was first elected to the school board in 2020, and then I was just re-elected in 2024. My coming here started when my children were coming of age for school in 2015. I now have an 8th grader at Johns Hopkins Middle School. We love the arts program at that middle school. And then we have a 5th grader at North Shore Elementary. I became passionate about our public schools when I came to know that we must and we can provide excellence and opportunity for every student. And that's the lens through which I consider my work today. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Peters. I'm a Pinellas County School Board member. I was elected to the board in 2022, and both of my daughters attended Pinellas County Schools. I volunteered and worked within our school district, and my daughters now have both graduated from college, and my oldest has gone on to get her master's as a library director, and my youngest actually works for a cabinet refinishing company, so she went on to the trades. I just felt like running for school board, it was my next step in serving our school district, and I really believe in public schools, and I believe in Pinellas County Schools and everything that we do here. So I look forward to your questions tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you all so much for coming out. It's exciting to see so many people to attend our performing and arts orientated Listen and Learn. So my name is Lisa Kane. I am in my 7th year serving on the Pinellas County School Board, first elected in 2018 and re-elected again in 2022. The performing arts is my #1 platform for being on the school board, and was the reason for my running, to promote arts education in our district and make sure and ensure that those dollars are being spent in the arts. I am the founder and creative director of the Tampa Bay Performing Arts Academy, a musical theater company for children, K through 12. I've been teaching musical theater for 17 years and have had the honor and pleasure of working with hundreds of students in our district outside of Pinellas County Schools in an after-school program to teach music, the arts, and dance. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey, and I look forward to continuing on. In addition to my work in the arts, I am a voting member of the Grammy Association, and before I had children, I was heavily involved in music and recording arts, continuing to do that. In addition to that, I have 4 children currently in Pinellas County Schools, and so ranging from elementary, middle, and high school. So I get a good experience in all the different levels.
And good evening. I'm Kevin Hendricks, Superintendent of Pinellas County Schools in my 3rd year as superintendent. A lifelong educator, mostly in Pinellas County, a high school teacher, a high school principal, and then oversaw academics for 5 years before becoming superintendent. I started these Listen and Learns when I first became superintendent. I think we did 9 of them, and the board really liked them and said, let's do more. And so we've been doing them since then, and changed the format this year to make them specifically about topics of interest so that people could come together and discuss those. And so tonight we have one on the arts. Later this year, we'll have one on our Bridging the Gap plan, and in the fall, we have one planned on athletics. And so we're excited to have you here tonight to hear more about the district, a little bit more about the arts, and then take questions and answers from the crowd. Dr. Lucas?
Thank you. I want to do a quick review of the agenda tonight before we get started. First, Superintendent Hendrick will do an overview for about 25 minutes. Next, we will conduct the question and answer session with the superintendent and board members for about 45 minutes. As you came in this evening, you received an index card to write your questions on. If you need an additional index card or have written your questions already, just raise your hand and a staff member will be by to collect or provide you with another card. Following the Q&A, there will also be an opportunity for all stakeholders to provide feedback regarding the arts in our schools. Everyone will have the opportunity to participate in either a survey or by posting comments to posted questions. During this time, the superintendent and board members will also be present and will continue to speak directly with stakeholders. Superintendent Hendrick, I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lucas. And so we're excited to be here tonight, and just it's in about 25 minutes, and I'll spend some time going over some items of interest for the school district. None of them, they don't all flow together, just different items that are relevant sort of for where we are in the school year and other topics of interest. And then we'll specifically talk about the arts. I did want to mention we have 3 of our school board members here tonight. We decided when we set these up that 3 was the right number. 7 was too many in order just for questions, and 1 or 2 was not enough. And so the board members get to choose which ones they attend, and I think all of them wanted to attend the arts one, but they won the arm wrestling contest, and so here they are tonight. But we are guided by our vision of 100% student success and our mission of educating each child for college, career, and life, and we're guided by a set of core values, and you can see those core values here on the screen. Those help to develop our strategic plan, which is now almost in its 3rd year, starting in 2023, and it lasts until 2026. There are 6 priority areas and then 16 specific goals in our district strategic plan. And you can see those online, and we'll briefly touch on a few of those tonight. But today we actually had a school board workshop, and we provide an opportunity twice a year to kind of review the district strategic plan. But one of the things that the board asked to do when it was developed in 2023 was to create a public dashboard that goes over each and every one of the goals. So you can go online to our district or to our website, go to the district strategic plan, and you can see a live interactive dashboard that has data points on it related to the 16 objectives, and then also contains highlights each quarter. And so ironically, that was just revealed for this last year today. So one of the things that we've recently highlighted and is relevant is around academic recovery. So going back to 2019 and all the way up till 2025 now, there have been a number of efforts for students to recover academically, socially, emotionally, and their mental health and well-being in our schools. And there was a lot of funding directed from the federal government into our state and then eventually to our district to support that. That funding in our district, over $200 million in terms of when you think about just reopening schools and all the operations that went into reopening schools, and then how do we catch students up? What are the things we can do for enrichment? What are the things we could do in the summer? And all of those funds ceased to exist in September of 2024. And so one of the things that has been studied by researchers at Harvard and Stanford is how did districts do across the country in recovering student achievement versus pre-pandemic levels. And so that report was recently released for this year, and as it relates to Florida, the report highlights Pinellas County. It talks about our efforts and the performance of our students in school, and that there have been bright spots in Pinellas County even when the data does not look great nationally or even statewide. So there's a couple of charts, and both of these were shared last month at our school board workshop. But this is what academic recovery looks like going back to 2019 through 2024 in Pinellas County. And essentially the researchers looked at national scores on the NAEP assessment, the nation's report card, and then did equipercentile rankings versus state assessments to see where were students versus the NAEP and their state assessment in 2019, and where are they today. And so what this chart represents, or this graph, is percent of students in the district who are free and reduced lunch across the bottom, and the overall change in achievement in grade levels. So a score of 0 essentially means that students in that grade level are about the same place that students in that grade level were 5 years ago. All right, so they're back to where that grade level was. If a score of -1 means they're about a year behind. So a student in 4th grade is really at a 3rd grade level, so to speak. And then obviously anything above that means that they've progressed beyond where they were. And so you can see Pinellas highlighted there, other districts in the state in different ways. But we're proud to see what our students have done in terms of pushing to recover their efforts in math. In reading achievement, the overall data is much lower across the state and the nation, but you can still see that Pinellas County students, and really this is across every single subgroup, that are all measured, male, female, free and reduced lunch, students with disabilities, et cetera, across all of our subgroups have been outperforming the state in terms of that average. So we're very proud to share that information with the community and know that our students and our teachers are doing amazing work in our core responsibility of educating students for reading and math, and we will continue to do so even after the funds have dissipated. So put that topic aside for a second. I'm going to jump to a different topic that's relevant to our school district, and that is enrollment trends. And so enrollment in our schools over the last decade has continued to decline, and you can see going back to 2018-19, about 98,000 students in district schools. This year, about 84,000, with a prediction of about 3,000 fewer students next year. There's a whole host of reasons for this across the spectrum. Certainly, age of the average citizenry in Pinellas County is one of those reasons. The fact that we have been built out for decades and decades. There's no new housing, except for this beautiful housing around here, but there's typically not 25-year-old parents with 2 children moving in to the condominiums that are nearby. There's also the family empowerment scholarships, which have greatly expanded over the last couple of years. There is the fact that during the pandemic and homeschool and people doing things different virtually, traveling with their children, all those things contribute to enrollment decline. But also contributes to enrollment decline specifically in Pinellas are birth rates. And so these are birth rates in Pinellas County from the Department of Health going back now a decade. And so the sort of teal bar represents the number of births in a specific year. So the very first one there is 2015. And then 5 years later, how many children enrolled in kindergarten in Pinellas County? And we have data sort of over the years of what percentage of births actually enroll in our schools. And for 20 years or so in the 1990s, 80s and 90s, it was about 85, 86, sometimes 87% of students who were born would enroll in public school kindergarten 5 years later. That number with the pandemic and all those other factors that I just talked about is at about 78, 77% now. So you can see the natural decline in kindergarten enrollment. And so for the last couple of years, we have graduated around 7,500 students, and we've taken in about 5,500, 5,800 kindergartners. And so it's sort of a natural evolution of lower enrollment. And there's a lot of different ways to address that as a district, and we continue to have conversations. Some of those are just around pure staffing models, others are around actual financial issues, some are around programming, all of those things, and there's different ways to actually make things better as a result of that. You don't have overcrowded classrooms. You can offer more VPK in every single school in the district, and those are some of the things that we have done. Separate topic, I told you it's a little choppy in some of these sort of time-related topics, is start time legislation. So state law was changed about 2 years ago that said that beginning in the 26-27 school year, every school district in Florida must follow a new state law regarding start times for students. Middle schools would not be able to start earlier than 8 a.m., and high schools no earlier than 8:30 a.m. For those of you that are in the room that know our start times now, our middle schools start typically at 9:30, 9:40 in the morning, so that's not a problem, but our high schools, all of them start well before 8:30, sometime between 7:15 and 7:40, depending on the school and location. And there's real obvious and clear reasons for this, sleep time research, and we've cited some of that here in terms of when teenagers fall asleep and how much sleep they need. We've talked about how that plays out in school, and all of those reasons are true. There's also other issues, and one of the reasons that we have high schools as early as we do is because our commitment, longstanding commitment to magnet schools in Pinellas County. We have over 80 magnet programs in our district, from career academies to magnets to fundamental programs, and by and large, we've provided transportation to all of those programs across our district in different ways over a couple of decades, and our high schools are our most robust programs. Every one of our high schools has at least one magnet program. Most of them have 2 or 3. And some of them, the transportation grid is county-wide. Others are regionalized depending on the program. And it takes us about an hour and a half to run buses in the morning. Some students get picked up as early as 5:45 or 5:50, most in the 6 a.m., 6:15, 6:20 range. But the runs for high school are larger, the zones are larger, And so to move high schools to a middle tier or upper tier in the third tier, because we have 3 tiers of busing, would be a challenge to continue that magnet transportation and busing. And so we've talked about these things in other listen and learns, and we proposed a couple of different solutions to other listen and learn groups like yourselves, and asked and solicited feedback. Those things include combining middle school and high school bus routes to create a little more efficiency and allow things to run a little smoother. We've actually piloted that now. We did it in summer bridge programs for a while. We've piloted it at Eastlake Middle School and High School and at Bay Point Middle School and Lakewood High School, where we've moved the middle school earlier, not actually starting the school days later, but paired them together to see what that would look like. Can middle school and high school students ride the bus at the same time? The answer is yes. Some of you may even put a middle school child in the car with a high school child all the time, and occasionally you have to yell in the back seat, but it works. And truthfully, this happens in smaller districts across the country, all over the place, where students, even K-12, ride the bus together. In every one of these buses, we have an additional adult on the bus. We have the driver and a bus assistant, just to make sure that everything is good in the back of the bus. But it's worked well, and it's something that we could, if this legislation comes through, look to do in other parts of the district. One of the options that really isn't tenable, but is obviously an option, is reduced transportation for district application programs. It's not something we're interested in doing. Certainly switching high school start times and elementary school start times, and you can see what that would look like on the screen behind us. There are concerns about elementary students being out in the dark at a bus stop, and those concerns are valid for high school students as well, but certainly more mature and able to navigate that a little bit better. Earlier elementary start times mean more daycare and coverage for parents in the afternoon. So there's no perfect solution in this, but these are the things that have been proposed by different groups. One of the other things is to advocate during the 2025 legislative session to give local control to school boards. It is quite clear from public conversations from our board that we want to start our high schools later, but also we don't want to ruin our system of a lot of other things in order to do that, and what are the costs for that? And even with additional funding, could you implement some of those things, like find more bus drivers and buy more buses and all those different things? So both houses, both the Senate and the House, currently have legislation to repeal that start time legislation and give local control to school districts. We are advocating for that. As recently as today, we had an update from Tallahassee on that. Perhaps our board will comment on that later, but it is the avenue that we're taking. If the law comes into play, certainly we will meet the letter of the law. So we are proud of our A-rated school district. For the first time in the 25 years of grading public schools in the state of Florida, Pinellas County Schools was an A-rated district this last year. It's something we're extremely proud of. We've gone over the data in previous iterations, so we're not going to do all the data tonight. But one of the things that we have emphasized in the improved academic achievement of students is the student and staff experience. What does school look like? How do students get motivated to come to school? How do we make it so that they're enriched by the activities that happen at school? And yes, we want to see achievement improve in all different areas, but not at the cost of not having school be fun, not at the cost of not having school be a place that people want to be. And as interesting as the pandemic was for educators, one of the clear things that we learned is that if school is not more important or more fun than the screen in front of me, attendance will go down. And in fact, in some ways, I might be able to learn better through a YouTube video or Khan Academy or something else than I might be able to learn in school if all you're going to do is put me on a computer, or all you're going to do is say, here's the book and read it. So the classroom has to be a place where learning comes alive in different ways. And yes, that's pretty easy in some courses, but in others it takes more effort. And that's something we've tried to emphasize. Included in that are experiences within the classroom, experiences that connect to the classroom, and then ones that come outside of the classroom as well. And so we're going to touch on just a few of those this evening, and then a lot with the arts. In that student and staff experience this year has been a push for digital responsibility. We know that our students, our teenagers, our middle schoolers, even our elementary school students have more access to things online than certainly maybe all of us would like them to have access to. And so how do we teach them more responsibility in that digital footprint that they carry? This was a priority of our school board last year as they revamped our cell phone policies in schools to be more restrictive, to make sure teachers have absolute opportunity to say off and away and cannot be used in our class, but also not just pretending that they don't exist, but let's educate students on that. And so this year we have implemented across all grade levels different lessons on digital responsibility. And they are age-appropriate lessons from kindergarten, first, and second grade, right? About sort of always make sure your parent knows what you're doing, never talk to anybody you don't know, those types of things. All the way to 9th and 12th grade, where we try to teach students what are those algorithms that are in the different feeds that you have, and what is it doing to you, and what does that mean for the decisions and choices you make. It's not a master's level course by any means, but it's certainly raising awareness and trying to bring awareness to digital responsibility to our students. And that's been a big improvement this year, as has the cell phone policy. Each year, we've also tried to showcase to the community things that are great in Pinellas County Schools and show what it means to be part of that experience. The last 2 years, we've hosted that at Clearwater High School, and you can see a variety of some of the activities that occurred: arts, athletics, culinary, chess competitions, a little bit of everything. And I think we have a video to show you about that experience event.
So we're at Experience PCS. This is our third year of trying to show the community what's available in Pinellas County Schools. We have demonstrations from students from everything from culinary to vet tech and everything in between. And then we have a lot of competitions. There's musical drumline today. Behind us in the gymnasium is an indoor soccer championship for middle school. So it's just showing the community and inviting everyone in to see what Pinellas County Schools has to offer. We want to show the community what we have. It's so infrequent that they get to come inside and experience school the way it is today, which is very different maybe than 20 years ago, 40 years ago. And so you get to see the new things, all the new technology.
What this young man is doing, he's using our virtual reality Prisms headsets, and it is designed for mathematics from middle school math all the way through advanced math in high school. But this is really engaging their mindset on reality. It makes the lessons come to life.
So we're experiencing our second annual Chalk Mural Challenge. We've got 4 participating schools. The theme this year is Spark Excellence, and so you're going to see some kind of imagery that's connected to that. The other thing that they need to incorporate in their image is the PCS porch logo.
We've created a family engagement event around math.
John, give me 5. Thank you.
We believe that parents are the cornerstone of partnering with our schools to ensure that students achieve. And so what we have here is an example for elementary and secondary using bingo to instill those math concepts.
He loves math, and it was great because he got to use his math skills and memorization and everything that he's learned in school.
As the parents and the families go through this process, they then end with an area here, which is conversation. And so we know that the cornerstone for all levels is having that conversation with your kids about their school day.
This was fun because I got to learn new things about animals and how to make things. This is fun because I really like hands-on activities and I got to experience that today. I'm having a really fun time. I think about this was so fun. I like dressing up as a fireman because it's my first time being in a fireman suit and a glove.
It was fantastic. I didn't even know they had this, and to be able to see different areas of different schools and what's offered throughout the Pinellas County Schools was astonishing.
I think this is so cool. I'm excited to touch the tarantula. I think it's cool that they're keeping the kids and their families involved and teaching them about animals.
I think it's a great learning experience for science and technology, and both my kids have had a really good time. I think the drones are really fun.
But it's a lot of fun and educational, and it's different.
My daughter, Melissa, she have a very great experience with the singing Ignite tour. It's amazing for her. This is a very great event that I have experienced. It's awesome.
So a little background there on what that experience looks like in our schools. Petting the tarantula is not an everyday experience, but nonetheless one that is possible. But tonight we do want to talk about our commitment to the arts and give a little background on what we offer in the arts and then take you through some of those experiences this year. So of course, performing arts is one of the 2 big areas, visual and performing arts. And in the performing arts, you can see the sequence of courses that students take in elementary school, and then in middle school and high school offerings. All of these courses are available to students. nearly most at every school, some specialized at certain schools, but certainly offerings nonetheless, whether it be in magnet programs or in traditional schools. A couple of things that we continue to work on in these programs is the expansion of students who not just perform at their school, but have the opportunity to perform other ways. And so a couple years ago, we created the elementary all-state workshops because the elementary sequence is a little more limited than the middle school and high school because everybody gets that same experience, but we knew that some students wanted more out of that. And so we created workshops for our teachers and students to participate and have the opportunity to try out for all-state competitions. And in the past 3 years, we've had as many as nearly 100 students audition for All-State with a very high acceptance rate of 25% acceptance, which is abnormally high when you look at across the state and the number of spots available. You can see the total enrollment in performing arts classes across the district. In the visual arts, a similar sequence at elementary school, and then you can see the middle school, high school courses. In high school, there are some semester and year-long options. Certainly our students have access to a sequential visual arts curriculum that you see all of the different 2D, 3D films, animations, photography, and many more. Annually, we have about 4,000 student artworks of 2D and 3D around our district in 25 different exhibitions at countywide exhibitions, most of them at art organization partner museums, art centers, and galleries. And there are about 800 art awards earned annually by students through these competitions. You can see the enrollment in the visual arts courses as well. And then that experience beyond the classroom is something that we definitely, going back to the pandemic times, really tried to elevate to get students out and back into museums and spaces of cultural interest. You can see some partner museums that students have taken visual arts field trips so far this year, and we continue to see those increases year over year over year as we dedicate additional funds to have students go out and experience the arts. Some of these, like the 6th grade experience at the Museum of Fine Arts, is for literally every student in the district experiences that. And then others are specifically in courses. Some of them are teacher-led, some of them might be on clubs or others, but certainly available to all students. It was briefly mentioned earlier that we have a number of school programs that have an arts theme in the magnet, and you can see those listed. Perkins Elementary School, which is a whole school magnet. Sandy Lane Elementary School Conservatory for the Arts, which includes magnet and zone students. John Hopkins Middle, which has a school within a school magnet as well. Tarpon Springs Leadership Conservatory for the Arts, both the middle school and high school have magnet programs within traditional zone schools. And then, of course, the Pillar, Pinellas County Center for the Arts, longstanding at Gibbs High School, which is a magnet program within a larger one. I didn't see any PCCA shirts here tonight. I'm so surprised. And we have a lot of points of pride when it comes to these, and you just saw some of those, but one of those is the Florida Seal of Fine Arts, which is a diploma designation that students can now earn on their actual diploma. And that Seal of Fine Arts comes from the Florida Department of Education and was actually sponsored by Senator Darrell Roussan, who's one of our local representatives, and was pushed by staff with Pinellas County Schools, and it just got approved just this last year, and so students will be able to earn that for the first time this year. For the last 5 years, Pinellas County has been named as a best community of music education by the National Music Merchants Association, which is a really big deal. They don't actually give that out to every single community in the nation. It's only select ones. You saw briefly in the video that we played earlier, the students who were singing had on Ignite choir shirts. That's a program that we started, I guess it's been about 5 years ago now, with the summer programming with the Ignite summer program, and then it's expanded and expanded and expanded. And it's all about trying to have students in elementary and middle school keep the passion alive so that they get into the arts programs as high school students. And it includes concerts on a whole host of levels. It includes certain invitational things. It includes camps in the summer. And much of that is referendum funded. We've also had some superstar teachers recognized as Teachers of the Year. Gerard Madrinan was the Pinellas County Schools Teacher of the Year in 23-24. And this year, Natalie Steratori, yeah, that's her. She's got married name too, but Steratori is on there. She was a top 10 finalist. She's an art teacher at Curlew Creek Elementary School. And then I'm going to run through a number of slides. I'm going to go through some of them quickly, but they all are help represent the commitment to the arts and how excellent the arts are in Pinellas County. And so I want to start with just recently the Florida Music Education Association recognized different schools for art, for students enrolled in the arts in their schools. Schools can only apply for this award every 3 years, but we had winners this year in the statewide competition. Carwise Middle School has 47% of its students, so nearly half the school enrolled in music classes. Dunedin Highland Middle School has 50% enrolled. Seminole Middle School, 50% enrolled, and Tarpon Springs Middle School, 77% of students are enrolled in a music class at those schools. We had 2 bands earn state and national awards this year. The Seminole High School Marching Band won the statewide competition for marching bands in Class 4A, and the Tarpon Springs Outdoor Leadership Conservatory for the Arts won the Bands of America Regional Competition for the Southeast region, and then won the national competition for 2A bands. One of those pictures there is in Indianapolis at the NFL stadium there. Extremely proud of both bands and what they've done. And as if winning the state championship was not enough for Seminole High School, they went to the Rose Parade in Pasadena, California on New Year's Day, and perhaps you saw them on TV. You can see the band there, and amazing performance. Did not have a chance to go out and see them there, but I did see their kickoff send-off party at Seminole High School. Truly amazing performance, and what they have to do and the amount of time they have to do it is just remarkable. And don't take my word for it, take the word of the Rose Bowl Parade, which awarded Mr. Madrinan the top band director award at the Rose Bowl Parade, beating out college and high school bands, including like University of Michigan and Ohio State and others. And the president and the committee were beyond impressed with the unwavering perseverance and incredible humanitarian spirit for our students and their band director, also remembering how the hurricanes affected particularly the Seminole High School zone this year and what that did. And so we're so, so proud of that band. We continue with our all-county performing arts series from elementary, middle school to high school, band, choir, orchestra, guitar, dance. So many of these things we sort of take for granted now because we've been doing them for so long. But I can tell you when our visiting clinicians come and they stand on stage and they tell us how impressive this is, and this is not the way it is all over America, it resonates every year when we hear that. And so we're so fortunate to have spaces like the Mahaffey Theater and Ruth Eckerd Hall, the dance one at the Palladium, to give students a world-class experience with clinicians who come in from around the country that are well-known to provide this opportunity for our students. So far this year, 1,100 students have participated in the All-County Music Fest. Our educators have been recognized across the state for a number of awards. You can see a couple of those here. 59 Pinellas County School art teachers attended the annual Florida Art Education Association Professional Development Conference, which was actually held here in St. Petersburg back in October. 40 of our own teachers taught sessions and led workshops for their colleagues across the state. 2 of our educators, and 1 retired, were recognized for statewide contributions, including Jonathan Ogle, our visual arts specialist, who received the Art Supervisor of the Year Award. Our retired pre-K-12 visual arts specialist, Sue Castleman, received a Career Legacy Award, and Richard L. Sanders art teacher, Zach Thompson, received the Adaptive Art Teacher of the Year Award. One of the things that I think is most impressive about our arts commitment in Pinellas County, and particularly the referendum, is that it's designed for every single student. The referendum is not designed to support one program or a small sector of music or visual arts, but it's literally, if you support the referendum and you live in Oldsmar, or you live in Safety Harbor, or you live in St. Petersburg, or you live in Gulf Park, all students get that experience and get those funds into their classrooms. And I think this is a great example, and something we've added recently is an art show specifically for students at our special education centers. We have 4 of them in our district, and we have an art show specifically highlighting the work at the James Museum. This one was recent. We're really proud of the diversity of art shows that we have and that we touch all students in doing so. The Shine Music Festival was recently held in November here in St. Petersburg as well. And one of our art teachers, Dwayne Shepard from Osceola Middle School, partnered with Gibbs High School visual arts instructor Brian McAllister to facilitate a web shot on mural design for artists from across the state. And then they worked together with 80 art teachers from across the state to produce this mural, which is on Central Avenue in St. Petersburg. An amazing piece of art and showcases the work of our teachers. I mentioned all of our art exhibitions across the county in the visual arts. 2025 Clearwater Arts Alliance March is Youth Art Month exhibit is going on right now, highlighting 140 2D student artworks by students across the district until March 30th. Over 400 people attended that kickoff showcase. We also have 60 student pieces of work at the Lipa Ratner Museum right now in Tarpon Springs for the high school exhibition. We have a new Perspectives exhibition that is currently going on at the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. And by the end of this quarter, which ends Friday, 5,600 works of art will have been displayed across the county in our partner museums. We also recently held the Pinellas County Art Region of the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards exhibition reception and ceremony at Gibbs High School on February 6th. It recognizes Pinellas middle school and high school students who earned awards in this nationally adjudicated competition. 625 awards were given to Pinellas County students. All of the Gold Key awarded work is now being judged nationally, and the national awards announcement will be March 26th. This is something that our students have excelled in for really decades, and the winners go to New York City to receive their awards in the summer, and the referendum helps to fund those trips. We also have student exhibitions all over the place. This one at the Marine Arts Center, I've said so many of them. Currently, a student piece of art is in the Art in the Capital competition. One of our students won that capital competition from Dunedin Highland Middle School, and that is currently on display. We also recently had a new exhibition in the Dunedin City Hall, in their new City Hall, and they wanted to have an exhibition, and here they are, and they awarded a first place prize to one of our students. The Florida State Fair just concluded. We had a number of students participate in that. There were 32 entries, and of only 30 pieces of work chosen statewide to highlight, 8 of the chosen works were from Pinellas County students. I'll say that again, 30 statewide, 8 from Pinellas County students. Just amazing. And while we have these amazing Gold Key National Award ones, some of these ones in this room, it's also exciting to see our beginning artists. And this is one of our kind of most popular programs is the Kids Tag Art Ceremony, which happens every year. This is now, I think, year 10 or 11 it would be year 11, with the Pinellas County Tax Collector's Office. And students in elementary schools draw designs of vanity license plates, and they enter it into a competition. All of the vanity license plates can be purchased through the tax collector's office. You can go stand in line and buy one if you want, or you can buy it online, and a portion of the proceeds go to support art classrooms. And since 2014, more than $300,000 has been raised to support the arts in our elementary schools. Photography, of course, is related to the arts, and our Journeys in Journalism program has an annual exhibition at Studio 620, and this was just held not too long ago, and it's always interesting to see their themes. And this theme this year was the changing city. And if you look close enough, you can see some hurricane-related damage and sort of gentrification pictures in St. Petersburg and what that looks like, and it helps students express across the board. This was a recent Dali Museum exhibition here. I think if you look on the walls now, this is the Hillsborough County one, but a few weeks ago it was the Pinellas County one, where we had almost 500 attendees come and visit and have their student artworks displayed here. And annually, 3,000 students help to tour the mini Dali Museum that comes to their schools in a trailer each year, and we're very proud of that. They go to half of the schools one year, half of the elementary schools the next year. Nearly all of this is possible because of the community support of the referendum. Since 2004, Pinellas County voters have voluntarily voted to tax themselves and property taxes to support, amongst other things, the arts in Pinellas County. Those of you that are familiar with this over the years know that that percentage is very high when you compare it to other things that might be on the ballot. And that includes in the referendum not just the arts, but support for teacher salaries, music, reading, and technology programs, and for the first time in this last cycle in 2024, support staff salaries as well. And so according to the board's policy, and that's coming up for final vote, but 70% goes to teacher salaries, 15% to support staff salaries, and 15% of the portion goes to programming. And because of the increase in the millage rate from a half mil to 1 mil by Pinellas County voters this last year, there will be an increase in funds dedicated to each of the program areas. So reading, arts, and music, based on the tax roll, will all see about a 50% increase in funds that go to support those programs across the district. And so tonight, after we have the question and answer section, we do have a number of posters out there that we'd like your feedback and ideas on the funds and how they should be spent, what's going well, and we'll talk about what those questions are on the posters. But one of the ideas that has consistently come up as we talk about the arts and the potential referendum use of the arts is to how do we continue to push students beyond what they get just in the regular portion of school. And so we have a few ideas here that have come from arts organizations and partners across the district, and we'd love your feedback on it tonight. And I'll break it down in basically simple ways. Looking at in elementary school, creating more robust after-school and weekend programs for students who are really interested in the arts to accelerate that experience for them, almost like I mentioned earlier with that all-state, but a little bit more in all of the genres. And then as students get to middle school and start to really develop their skills in particular in the art area of interest. And so we provide that comprehensive look in middle school, and everybody, if you've ever listened to a 6th grade band concert, you know what I'm talking about, right? But how do we accelerate students in their instruments? How do we accelerate them in their area of interest, whether it's dance or technical theater or whatever that is, through specific tutoring in the arts? So think of what we do to tutor someone in math or tutor someone in English. And we do a little bit of this now where we have clinicians come into the classroom, and some of our teachers in the room can verify that. But this is on a more holistic basis and more systemic so that every student has access to growing their specific interest. And then the third opportunity that has been brought up by partner organizations and teachers and some small focus groups is how do we capitalize on those master clinicians that we have in our schools and spread that word and pay them for doing those workshops so that they can bring up and educate some of our own, and how do we bring in others to do that same work? There's a lot of talent in this community. There's a lot of talent that wants to be part and grow our schools, and so those are some ideas, and we'd love your feedback on that a little bit later. So that's a highlight of where we are with some district initiatives and programs and a little bit in the arts. And I'm going to pass it back to Dr. Lucas for the Q&A portion.
All right. Well, I mean, I know I'm supposed to remain neutral, and I will as moderator, but wow, right? I mean, those accomplishments. So thank you so much for sharing with it. Yes, incredible, incredible. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Superintendent Hendrick, for the overview information and about how stakeholder feedback is being used to guide our district. We will now move on to the question and answer portion of the evening. There will be 45 minutes for this portion of the agenda. We are going to try to get through as many questions as possible during this time. If you need an additional index card or have written your questions already, just raise your hand and a staff member will be by to try to collect and provide you with another card. I will read the questions aloud and will then give the superintendent and board members an opportunity to respond. The board and superintendent are committed to a standard of civility and decorum in conducting our community meetings. This includes refraining from clapping or making audible noises during or after a speaker or staff member comments. We appreciate you assisting us in maintaining a civil and constructive environment. It is everyone's responsibility to ensure decorum, respect, and civility for all present. Lastly, please note that this meeting and all comments will be broadcast live on the internet, and the video will be publicly archived. Members of the public may always communicate with the board or superintendent through their respective email addresses, board@pcsb.org or super@pcsb.org. And now for the first question.
And as Dr. Lucas does those, we're also here, part of this purpose is when we're done with the 45 minutes, we're happy to stay around and answer questions individually. So we do put a time limit on it so that we don't sit here all night, but also we're here, and that's part of the purpose of the Listen and Learn is we're able to just talk informally afterwards. So Dr. Lucas, fire away.
All right, the first question, and I think you may have touched upon it, but maybe someone could expand. Are there opportunities for outside organizations to bring performing artists into schools for outreach programs?
Yes, and we love them. So the answer is yes, and so the obvious next question is how do I do that, right? Certainly Jonathan Ogle and Ajori Spencer, our performing arts supervisor, there's Ajori over there by the door, can connect with you about what those look like. When I talk with partner organizations about that, I always think about what you can do in a one class period type of scenario, right? And what can you do for the greatest amount of students served? Because if you're a principal, you're thinking about logistics and how do we get students in and how do we get them out and all those different things. And so that's sort of our regular way of work. I know we have a lot of arts partners that come in and do assemblies for students, both for rewards, for motivation, to just build up their interest and skills. And so those are some pretty easy ones. And then we certainly have a lot of arts organizations that come in and do specific tutoring and skill development. But Jonathan and Jory are here tonight and can certainly talk with you and help connect in that direction.
Thank you. And this one there's an A and a B, so I'll read them, but if you need me to reiterate. The first part is, if the schedule changes are not reversed, are there plans to minimize damage to student education? And why didn't the public, such as students, parents, and teachers, get input on the schedule change?
I'll start with this one, and then if the board wants to chime in, they may. So part A was about damaging students' education. I think when you look at our schools and you look at the leadership from our school board to certainly me and Ajori and Jonathan and anybody else in this room, our only goal in our whole career is to advantage students in their education. That's why we exist and that's why we're here. And we love our children, we love our schools, and we want to see them all thrive and succeed. When you talk about the block schedule, and I can't believe it took 2 questions to get there.
I was shuffling.
But nonetheless, unfortunately, could communication be better? Of course it could, all right? So I will own that as superintendent. But also, in doing this, we have to look at a whole host of factors. And so I want to provide a little bit of a history lesson, and I don't want this to be soapbox-ish, but it's relevant. So when you go backwards, and some in this room may even remember this, and so if we talk about the Pinellas County Center for the Arts as an example, when Pinellas County started magnet programs, it did so with magnet grants, and there was a 6-period day in our schools. And so they created the Pinellas County Center for the Arts, they created the Center for Advanced Technologies, IB, which is not really part of this discussion, and added a period onto the day to do that. And most students went to school 6 periods, and students in those magnets went to school a 7th period. And they paid teachers who taught in those magnets additional money to continue that instruction later in the day. So teachers got paid more for that. Then, we went to 7 periods in all schools and kind of stayed that way for a while. And then in 2010, at 4 schools that were under state oversight because of low grades, we went to an 8-period rotational block. And there were a lot of different reasons for that, but the largest part of that was to give students the opportunity to make up credits during the school day. We did not have robust credit recovery programs at the time. Students would have to go to night school and do packets or go to summer school. And there was a large concern that whether they could or should or would, they weren't going. And so how do we capture them during the day? During that time, I was actually the director of high school education. So I worked at the district office and helped to oversee the implementation of that. And people were angry at us that we were moving to that schedule. They didn't like the idea, they didn't like they had to go a longer day, they didn't like that they had to teach more, all these other things. And now we are 15 years later and angry again that it may go away. And so that's okay, and that's a valid piece because people have adapted to it and see that. I say all that to say, our programs on a 7-period day were amongst the very best in the country and operated on a traditional straight schedule with certain classes paired together in a block and did an amazing work and will continue to do amazing work. The change this year is around staffing of the schools. And so it's not a change to say you cannot do block, it's a change to say the staffing is changing in accordance with our reality of fiscal responsibility. And we did actually approach the schools in 2019 about this and didn't change because we had all those ESSER dollars that I mentioned before, and we're able to continue to fund additional staffing and not just at these 4 schools, but a lot of other schools. And so that has to be adjusted. One of the things that is a little bit of a misnomer is that it has to be 7 straight periods. It does not. We staff certain schools at the same model. We anticipate staffing the 4 high schools next year, and those schools do 8 periods. They do block schedules. I know this. My son went to middle school where they had 8 periods every day for all 3 years he was there, and they were staffed the same way we're staffing these schools next year. So it takes creativity. It takes the opportunity for people to think a little bit differently. In a reverse world, would we have said, well, let's plan all that out first a long, long time ago? Maybe. But we also didn't know what our budget reality would be, and we know what that is now, and so that's where we sit. No one wants to hurt children. No one wants to take things away from children. 7 is less than 8, and 6 is less than 7. All those things are obviously true. And we will work with each and every student and parent and school to make that happen. And so that's the start of that. The second part of the question was?
Oh, wow, I shuffled it back.
All right.
Hold on.
I'll pass it.
I got you.
Why
didn't the public, you kind of address that?
A little bit. That, you know, and I even said this today at our school board workshop, that some people are not happy with that, and I understand that. It's not, sometimes you can be disingenuous in saying, we can continue this model when fiscally you can't. And so if you can't, what are the other options? And I think that's the input that should have been had, and in retrospect could have been done differently. But there is plenty of time, and this is the normal time of year when you start looking at schedules for next year. Our schools will tell you that they haven't received their units yet for next year, because now's not, it actually happens in about a week or two. So it is the regular process for that. I'll pass it to the board if they want to chime in on some of that.
I'm going to chime in on this. So as I mentioned earlier, I have an 8th grader at Johns Hopkins Middle School, and I'm actively involved in that school. I'm treasurer of our PTA there. I coach the boys volleyball team. I'm around. And so therefore, I'm very fortunate to really know the teachers and leaders at that school, a few of whom are here tonight, and they also know that I'm dedicated to our arts program. So when the schedule information first came out, I got a call from Miss V, which I really appreciated, because I tell everybody all the time, please call me if you have any questions. Why are we here? Why are we here on the school board if you don't feel like you can call me and ask me my thoughts on things, right? So thank you for calling me. And what does this mean? What does this mean for my arts program? What does it mean for my dance program? Ms. Cardinal's here tonight, who's an extraordinary dance teacher. She has raised and spent like $10,000 this year sending her kids to programs at Santa Fe College. And I mean, she's just an amazing dance teacher. And one of the worries for them immediately was, does this mean I only have 45 minutes for dance? I mean, I can't even dress out and dance and then dress back in. And it's because, and I do think we had a failure to communicate here, it's because this got pushed into a block, non-block discussion. They say no block, they say block, and that's not what this was, in my opinion. I'm just going to share with you, in my brain, what I understand the directive to come out was that we should have core every day for most students. So I think most people who are here tonight know what I'm talking about, right? So I don't have to explain. So right now, there are a number of schools that only have math every other day, or have reading every other day. My student attends one of those schools, so I understand it. So that means weeks when he only has math twice a week on every week, or every other week. That is fundamental. He cannot miss those classes. I wouldn't want him to anyway. But it's a different than having math every day. And what we know, or what we hear from our leadership, who has extraordinary experience in academics, is that it is better for most students to have core every day. I'm using the phrase most students on purpose. I'm not saying all students, because there might be teachers who are exceptionally good at block, even for their math class or for their literature class. There might be science classes where, in order to do that AP Bio lab, I've got to have at least 1 block a day, right? There might, and this is where the local opportunity at a school is so important for the principal to work with their teachers to identify, okay, how do we do this? We know that we've heard we should have core every day for most students, not necessarily all students. And we also know the funding model piece is this, the math I do is 85.7% as far as teachers' time in the classroom. Because if you look at these schools, they spend about 75% in the classroom compared to other schools that spend 85.7% in the classroom. And that's where the money part comes in. And so the way I think of it, I think because I studied aerospace engineering and I build buildings, and so I'm very sort of mathematical around these things, is each school has a certain amount of time in the day. We at Johns Hopkins have 6.5 hours a day. Other schools might have 6 hours and 45 minutes a day. And what I believe the superintendent is saying is, in that time, in that 6 hours, 45 minutes, I would like to see core every day for most students, and you meet this funding model. However you do that. Now, there are a lot of other parameters. Obviously busing with school start, school finish. You need passing time. You have lunchtime. Dr. Vasquez can educate us all on the number of minutes you have to have for a semester for each course, and we can't start school before August 10th because of the legislature, right? And we want to finish exams before winter break because how terrible to have to come back from winter break and take exams. Who wants to do that? So the first semester is super tight. So with all of those different parameters, how can a school then take those and meet them? And if you can meet them, if you want to do a modified block, like look at Mangrove Bay Middle School, their schedule is really interesting, right? So different high schools, different middle schools have different schedules right now. And so my understanding is the directive isn't block versus non-block. It isn't even 8 versus 7 versus 6. It's core classes every day for most students and to meet this funding model. And so we're still working, and as you said, we don't have our numbers for next year. We don't have our units. We won't for a little while. I think what's really hard and what I'm hearing is that people are worried because, and when you don't have an answer, if you've mapped out your child's whole career, right, or your school works a certain way, and if you don't have it figured out exactly how it's going to work, it causes a lot of fear, and it does take a little time to solve the math problem. So I think each school might solve it a little bit differently, and if I've said anything incorrect, I would like to be corrected. But I think you can, and I love the different things that I've gone through where I think you can achieve core every day for most students, still be able to block the arts classes, and even block some science, block some literature if you want to, but maybe it's not full block, maybe it's 1 block a week. So those are the kinds of things you can do and have the conversations with and meet those new parameters. So I would love for us to get out of this block, no block, and figure out how to solve it. And it is about student achievement, and it is about student experience and teacher experience. Our teachers know, what you need to be able to give to your students. So I hope that you just continue to work with your administration, continue to advocate, but also partner and try to solve it.
All right. You mentioned the Florida Seal of Fine Arts requirements. What are the requirements to achieve that seal?
So I don't have them memorized, so I'm going to look at Jonathan and Jory, or maybe the person in the back of the room who wrote it. But it's a certain number of courses in the pathway, and then a grade point average in those courses, and I believe it's 4 with a certain GPA. Jonathan, Jory?
You want me to stand up?
Sure.
So you need, if you get an A in 3 years of art courses, and they're broken down by discipline, so you have music, dance, visual arts, and theater. So if you get 3 years worth of A's, then that allows you to proceed, where you can then choose 2 of 5 different options. So if you take an advanced course, AP, IB, that sort of thing, if you do 25 volunteer hours for arts-related community partner, if you do, let's see, what are the other 2, George? Juried event. Juried event, oh yes, and an award recognition at a district, state, or a national event. So there are different things that will allow you to then earn that seal for your diploma. We have it on our website. If you go to pcsb.org/Fine Arts Seal. Fine Arts Seal. You'll find all the information there, including the student application form. You can download and start filling out now.
Thank you. What is the strongest evidence that arts education fosters academic growth?
What is that again?
What is the strongest evidence or evidence that arts education fosters academic growth?
I would mention, I don't remember the exact numbers, but for a brief period of my life, I was a museum director, and I remember doing this research and learning about it, but it is measured. There is measurable success in academics, so we know that students who participate in the arts are 4 times more likely to participate in math and science competitions. We know that students who participate in the arts are 3 times more likely to graduate high school. We know, I mean, there are many, many metrics about a direct academic link to participation in the arts. So I can't quote them all, but it is measured.
Absolutely, it is measured. There's a variety of statistics that are available in our national arts organizations for national arts education, but Mensa has some very interesting ones geared around music education and brain function. There's some statistical research, or scientific data, I should say, on brain composition. When students have a number of years in music composition, it strengthens the connecting core tissues of their brain and actually creates a more fluid ability to use both sides of the brain simultaneously through performance and the understanding of music theory and music composition. So there is a lot of scientific data available on how music and the arts do enhance brain function, which carries forth to all other academic areas of education, whether it's science and math or English and reading, etc. So there's just a variety of places that you can look to find that. It's a great, great passion of mine, is understanding how the arts is not only enhances your education, but also enhances the person as a whole, and can heal them emotionally, and can be just a grounding for all sorts of other activities. It's really the glue of our educational fabric to me that holds all the other academic areas up and keeps them together.
Thank you. Yes? Thank you. The Dali and many public spaces of art were built by workers with technical skills. Vocational programs lost funding diverted to hurricane recovery. When will those funds be replaced? Vocational teaching benchmark set a 1-to-6 teacher-student ratio. Ours ever experienced more. How will you continue to, or can you reduce that ratio?
So a couple just points related to that. So we had about $45 million thus far in expenses related to hurricanes to repair schools that were damaged. Certainly Madeira Beach, K8, and Gulf Beaches are chief among those, but there were other schools that had roof damage and things like that. No career technical programs were hurt as a result of that. You're talking about two separate pots of money. So you have operating money and workforce dollars, and then you have capital dollars. So there were capital projects delayed across the district as a result of that. So if one of those capital projects happened to be a CTE classroom, which I don't think was off the top of my head, but if it was, then it will be just in the next cycle of funding. In terms of actual staffing of classrooms, so Florida staffs its classes on an average basis across schools, and you're familiar probably with class size and what that amendment means and what it doesn't mean, many in this room. But in general, core academic classes in high school and middle school, 25-to-1, 22-to-1. Electives, typically 28-to-32. Some, such as physical education, might have more, others have less. In our district, we stick to that model for the most part, with a couple of exceptions. The Pinellas County Center for the Arts, we staff at 18-to-1. Most classes, I've looked at their master schedule recently, most don't have 18 in there, but it's staffed on average at 18-to-1. And then there's a few other elective type courses, driver's education, things like that, because you have a range and a car and only one teacher in those that have to be staffed a little different. But for the most part, that's the staffing. It's a balloon. You lower the staffing on one side, somebody else has to go up. So if you want to run an AP statistics class with 10 students in it, another core course has to have 15 more students in it somewhere. I mean, that's just the reality of how that works. So I would say our career technical classes are like most sequential programs, whether those are in the arts or in career technical education. Typically the lower level, the entry level classes are larger, and as students get older and more specific, they get a little bit smaller in terms of their particular number of students in the class. What we look for is an average over the entire program in terms of how do we support that.
Thank you. Can you speak to any homeschooler activities or programs that the county can provide to these students?
We don't govern homeschool. Students register with us for homeschool, so that's about the extent. In fact, there's law about what we can and cannot do in that regard. What I can say is that homeschool students, students who are in virtual school, part-time, all those types of things, it's very open now that students can enroll in specific classes in schools and be there for 1 period or 2 periods or 3 periods. They can't enroll, for example, in a magnet program's dance class because they need to be in that magnet, but they could enroll in a general education music class that would be offered at their own school.
Thank you. Holland's, I'm so sorry.
And Superintendent, correct me if I'm wrong, homeschool students can also attend sports and clubs at their zone schools if they are homeschooled as well. So anything that's offered at your zone school as a homeschool student, you can participate in that sport, club, dance, whatever that is.
Thank you. Hollins High School Academy of Entertainment Arts was pursuing the Academy of Distinction in 2024, but did not make it. This was lack of school board support, this writer is saying. What happened, and is there a way to support Hollins in attaining this next year?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's lack of the school board here, but the Academies of Distinction is a program run with a specific rubric. There's 10 national standards based after the National Career Academy Coalition standards. Programs apply, they do a self-rating, and then there's a validation process by partners with the Pinellas Education Foundation who are on their Stavros Education Board. And then they look at those rubrics, they go do interviews at the school, and then there's a rating that's determined, and our career technical department interacts with that. In terms of the support, there may be things that we're lacking in that application that may be needed, and that's something we could certainly help with. But we just recognized, I think, 5 or 6 school programs across a bunch of different schools that supported that just a few weeks ago.
Thank you. Florida ranks 50th in financial support of public education. How can we as citizens increase our state support of our schools so we can afford to staff our schools and provide the block scheduling or extra number of periods that would be so effective?
We need to reach out to our representatives on a constant basis and let them know we want that in our schools. I have been serving on the Pinellas County Legislative Committee for, I think, 3 or 4 years. I'm also served for 2 years on the Florida State School Board's Legislative Committee and now serve on the Florida State School Board's Board of Directors and Federal Policy Committee. And I think there is a conversation about, a lot of conversation about charters and private schools in our state and about funding those models strongly. And I think that we as citizens need to reach out to our representatives to let them know that we want to continue to be funded. We want our public schools to be the best that they can be, and we want to be able to have the control of those dollars on a local level. Oftentimes, local programming cannot be what it could be because of state mandates or legislative initiatives that don't align with our district strategic plan. And it's important for our community members to continue to reach out and participate in that process, because I think things do change when we have a voice as a community.
Thank you. Next
I might
question.
say something on that, Dr. Lucas.
Go ahead. Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
I echo what Lisa just said now, and then I think, so one, we need to advocate with the state as far as the importance of public education and funding it appropriately, but they really need to hear from you. And this is your state representatives, your state senators, so you can come tell us, and you know what, we agree with you. We are with you on this. We are school board, public school advocates. That's why any of us are sitting here. And so we need you to also talk to those legislators as well, because otherwise they do hear from the lobbyists and the activists for charter schools and for the Florida Empowerment Scholarship funding private schools. They hear from those people loud and clear and often. And so we also need them to hear from public school advocates as well. So please tell your story and appeal to them as well. The other thing that I think Pinellas County has done, which I want everyone to be proud of, and I know has already been mentioned, is that referendum. So the fact that we here in Pinellas choose, I think we were the first county in the state even, second county in the state to choose to tax ourselves because we know that paying our teachers is fundamental. Having the best and bright, teachers are the #1 impact on student achievement. And having the best and brightest teachers matters, and pay matters. And so us passing that referendum, I think we can be happy about that. That should go into effect this coming school year. Is it still enough to deal with the rise of cost of housing and affordability in Pinellas County? It's tough, but we are, at least our community is loud and clear telling our teachers that we support you, we believe in you, and we're helping to fund the best we can.
Yes.
As an example of what the power of communicating with your state leaders can do, you all remember when they wanted to add pickleball courts and resorts and things to our state parks, right? People reached out from this is a nonpartisan issue. People reached out, they found a common ground, and they made their voices heard. And it doesn't take, I've seen what can happen when even just a small group of people reach out to their legislators and their representatives. And emails, phone calls, it doesn't take much. It really doesn't. But if you keep doing it, just send an email, get your friends to send an email. They will hear you and they will respond, but they do have to hear from more than just us.
I do think, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
I do think since you're here and you care about this as much as we do, just a couple numbers to be aware of. So the state is approaching $4 billion in expense on that Florida Empowerment Scholarship piece. So I think some of you know that, it started early on with the vouchers with McKay scholarships, with Gardner scholarships. It was very specific for very specific students. And then as vouchers opened up, you had to have below a certain income level. You had to be at a public school and then apply and be below a certain income level to be able to get that voucher to go to a private school. And then just a couple years ago, they went to universal vouchers where there's 0 income limit and you can already be at a private school. So families that have been choosing private schools, we are now, and so when you see those numbers, because we have those numbers, the number of students who have that FES scholarship, and when you see that jump in the last couple of years, it's because it's those families who were already in private school. They didn't jump, they didn't leave and take it. They were already there. And then I would just tell you from the research I've done, more than half of the private schools in Pinellas County that receive your tax dollars are unaccredited by any academic agency. Now, we have very strong private schools. There are some excellent private schools in this county. By the way, I'd put our schools up against any of them any day. That's why I send my kids to our schools. But the fact that more than half of them are unaccredited, and then plus more than 20% are for-profit companies. So I think there are a lot of questions. If you want to advocate around this, you can start asking questions about the accountability when it comes to your tax dollars. The other thing is those FES scholarship students, yes, they have to take a test, but they can choose from one of 28 nationally normed tests to pick. And then those scores are not reported in a way that you can actually see. There is no data that says that those schools do any better than ours, and I would actually challenge that ours do far better. We also know that we have students who have left the school system and taken one of these vouchers. They think it's this shining light, and they turn around and they come right back. And so any of those stories that you have or you want to share and tell, I certainly want to hear them, because I do think this is something that we have to tell the story about and advocate on.
Thank you. And I'm trying to align them because there are a lot that follow the same kind of line of questions. So I think this one is important around the scheduling. Can you clarify, are you open to allowing students to enroll in 8 periods, course requests, credits for 25-26?
Sure. So the simple answer is yes, you can enroll. The more complicated answer, and suspected we've had some questions on the scheduling tonight. So if we can put up that slide with just to explain this in a little more specificity. So this is the breakdown, and some of you may have seen this, but this is the breakdown of how units are allocated. And it's based on students enrolled in the school, and then what those targets are, and there's a whole host of other things. So the very first column there in gray is number of students that would show up in focus. So if you were a teacher at this school and you went in and you said, how many students do we have in the school? You would see that number. Not all of those students attend school full time. Not all of those students may be in early college. They may be there just for sports, right? Anybody who is associated with the school at all is there. So the target in yellow is the actual students that earn FTE during the school day, and then the target in blue is the total that are sort of, if you put all those together, that earn full-time, what that looks like. And then there's magnet enrollments and how that works out. So at the very bottom of the page, you can see the units for 6 of 7 that would be generated by the number of students in those schools, the additional units that are there for block, and then what that difference is. So at Boca Ciega, the difference between what would be on a 6 of 7 schedule versus the block schedule, the 6 of 8 is what it should say, is 11.15 units. And you can see Holland, you can see Gibbs, you can see Lakewood. I know the teachers in the room are saying that's not the average teacher salary of $88,000. That includes benefits and fringe and all those things, but what it costs to have a teacher. And so you can see the additional cost as compared to a traditional school on the regular schedule. Under no set of circumstances do we think that we're just going to cut all those 40 teachers. Not at all. And in fact, there are some vacancies at some schools and things happen through attrition and all those things. But there is a point, and this is the conversation earlier, where you have to say you can't continue to go higher and higher and higher with the cost as enrollment goes down and down and down. And you have to offer every single program. And so there's a few teachers in the room who were at Gibbs High School in 2011 when I met with them as the director of high school, and we talked about enrollment and programs and how many students you need to run a program, and you have to have a certain number of students just to have, say, a dance program or an entertainment program, what that is. And it depends on the program and what it is, but you can't run an entire program with a full-time teacher and have 12 students, right? You have to have a certain cut. And Gibbs and others have done a very good job in getting to sort of those minimum numbers. But as we look forward, and to get to that question, a couple others that have been peeking over Dr. Luca's shoulder, no, we're not going to cut 40 teachers. There will be some savings. I suspect it'll be less than half of that number, but there does need to be a spot where you say, you cannot continue to overfund when you don't have the money for that. And that's where we are. And so I figured we'd have some questions on that tonight. We've shared this with a number of other folks. And so that's what that is. Does it mean that one program is going to be treated differently than another? No. But if you've been in schools long enough, you know that in a master schedule annually, there are always economic decisions you have to make. Do I have 7 sections of AP literature or do I have 6? And if I have 6, what does that mean? What's the total class size? Do I have a full-time teacher of AVID or do I have a part-time teacher? And what is the rest of that teacher? That happens every single year, and that's how that happens. So to go back to the question and several others that are sort of similar to that, is there a mandate that it has to be 7? No. I said earlier, there are schools who are staffed this way. We have a middle school staff this way that has 9 periods, and their schedule just looks different. And some of those meet every day and some of them don't. I was principal at a high school that had some programs that all of those classes were blocked. All the culinary classes in grades 10, 11, and 12 were blocked. All of the automotive classes were blocked. Students had 2 periods every single day and they were done in a full block. So those that have individual programs or specific things they're thinking about, when you think about the sequence of courses that your students take and the regular way in which they do that, for most programs, it's fairly easy to say, and if you look at, say, the Pinellas County Center for the Arts, a lot of those students are taking 3 and 4 classes in the arts. That's easy to pair if there's similar cohorts of students. It's not always perfect, and that's the case with every schedule. Any parent in here can tell you their child had to choose at the end of the day between AP Stats and AP Psych because they were both only offered 1 period, and that's all I could do, and that's the way it runs for everything. And so when you have those conflicts, then you have to look for, well, what are the other options to do? So I think that answers a couple. I know there's several on that, but wanted to share that.
Thank you. How many schools have a dance or theater teacher that are not magnet schools? And those that do not have either one, do they work or partner with an outside organization to give all students these experiences?
So I'm looking at Jory because he could probably tell me. Theater, most schools have a theater teacher of some sort, maybe not always full-time, but some sort. Dance, very few would have that outside of the magnet. Do they work with outside organizations? Yes. You can see our school board agenda, almost every single one. You see outside folks that we pay to come in and support. Sometimes that is for musical theater productions or things like that. Sometimes it's classroom instruction. So that's a pretty regular way of work. Dance is pretty much at our arts magnet programs.
There are concerns, particularly in middle schools, about students being pulled out of electives for tutoring or testing, especially mock testing, where students have been pulled out multiple times. And arts education is often collaborative, and important instructional time is being lost in those arts classes. I don't know that there's a question there. It might just be a statement.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from the district level, no one says, pull kids out of this elective to do this mock testing. That doesn't happen. Those decisions are made locally at the school level. And if there's concerns, you can certainly reach out to me or a board member, and we can talk to the principal and address that so that it's done in a way that is fair and equitable, and also that it's not done too frequently or not enough. I would say the flip side of that is there would be some teachers that say, you know, in the weeks leading up to that big performance, my child's been pulled out of my class all the time to go down to the theater, and I support it, but don't come yell at me when I'm asking. So it does work both ways, and but certainly if it's too much one way or the other, we can address it.
We have exceptional physical and performing arts programs. Many of our extracurricular events, performances, art shows are led by the teachers or run by the teachers, and they're giving their extra time to transport and to educate. What supports can we offer to take some of those extras off the shoulders of a teacher and onto the community, or compensate those who are responsible for the extra work and time?
I'm looking for some help here. No, I'm teasing. One of the things that we were adamant about with the referendum, in this particular version of the referendum, and actually Jonathan and Ajori do provide a lot of funds in the previous versions of the referendum to arts teachers to do those things. That money doesn't exist a lot in the other disciplines. And so, for example, band directors, high school band directors get, I think Mr. Spencer pays for a whole week of band camp, right? Whereas others don't get paid for, say, a preschool, whatever that might be. And that, you know, no one is suggesting they should do it for free, but also it's nice to have those funds to be able to pay people. And I know when Jonathan or Ajori ask for people to help with certain events, whether it's putting up the art show in our district hall, they pay teachers to do that. And so we're fortunate to have that. But one of the things we asked for in our negotiations with our teachers union around this version of the referendum was, in the teacher salary portion of it, could we dedicate some funds to increasing supplements for teachers who do extra activities? And our board supported that. The union has supported that, and there is a supplement committee that's meeting to do that. And so there's about $1.8 million that will be allocated this year to go to supplemental programs across the district in all supplements, arts, athletics, clubs, National Honor Society, whatever those things might be. And there's a committee of teachers that work, and they help to spread that out. And it's sort of the committee's decision what that looks like, and they're fair and equitable in the way that they do it. And so we recognize that people who do the extra work should be compensated for that. And we're using some of those funds to do that, especially when every teacher in the district, as Mrs. Hine mentioned earlier, will receive at least a $4,000 raise next year from the referendum. And unlike other counties that have done the 1 mil, they have extended the teacher day to 8 hours, or given them more days in the year to work, and we haven't done that. We've said we want to keep the hours the same, the schedule the same, and the pay will increase. But as you increase the pay, you do run that risk of, well, I'm making $4,000 or $5,000 more just from the referendum. Why would I do this supplemental position for $800 when I'm up $4,000 already? And so we need to increase the supplements as well, and that's something that has been negotiated, and we look forward. I don't have those specific numbers, but if you look at our total cost of supplements, the $1.8 million really is probably about, on average, about a 45–50% increase to those supplements next year.
And then I have a couple of similar questions, one from a Gibbs teacher and then one from the perspective of St. Pete High, again talking about block, non-block, but this teacher says this is not a block versus non-block discussion, it's a reduction in funds from South County low-income Title I schools. We've seen a reduction in funding. When can we expect to stop losing resources? And then also just, is there a way to look into, as we've been discussing, keeping current arts magnets intact, with creative scheduling. Can 2 different bell schedules be aligned? And I think you all had addressed that. I just didn't know. It kind of was merging a few questions and a few different schools.
Yeah, let me just address the funding in general. Our staffing models are very public. Anybody can look at them. You can compare a North County school to a South County school, or non-Title I to Title I. It's just not true that Title I schools receive less. They receive a lot more. You can look at our budgets and you can see that. It may not be what people think they need, and that's a fair and valid argument, but they are staffed at a higher ratio, a lower TPR, certain schools different ways. The Title I budgets themselves is a completely different conversation. We don't control Title I budgets. We receive that from the federal government, and when you have fewer students, guess what you get in Title I dollars? Less money. And so next year we'll have $3 million less in Title I, both because we have fewer students and or the federal funding of Title I changes. And so we don't actually control that at all. There's a formula, it's called rank and serve. It's based on poverty, and then it goes down the line on that. What we try to do, and there's 2 models we can choose from, and what we've tried to do in those models is give as much money as we can to more schools. And so I will tell you, the choices this year in the 2 models, one of the models would not have, well, let me just say this. The next school in the shorter model list, where you give more money to fewer schools, versus the one that has more schools included, the first school off the list in the shorter model was Gibbs High School. And to me, that's an incredibly school that needs money to support its general population and the arts population, and we wanted to include them. And there's a bunch of other schools below that we felt, how can you not give Title I dollars to those schools? And so we've tried to advantage as many schools as possible, but it is a formula that is driven by the number of children in the school and then the federal funds that come. Similarly, there's other federal programs, Title II, Title III, Title IV, which all are based on student population, and we don't know from one year to the next what those funding models will be. They've been generally consistent, although down a little bit each year, and then further down for us because of student enrollment. So I certainly welcome anybody who wants to see the staffing models at schools and how Title I schools do off the base, out of operating, outside of Title I, receive more resources. And that's part of our board's commitment in our strategic plan. And we could defend that all day long, not because we have to, but because it's true.
Thank you so much. I've been given the sign that we ran out of time, and so this is not the end of the program, though, and I know that there will be more time for interaction. I want to thank everyone for your questions, your engagement this evening, and thank you to Mr. Hendrick, Mrs. Heim, Mrs. Kane, Mrs. Peters for being here with us tonight. I am going to turn it back over to Superintendent Hendrick to give an overview of how everyone here tonight can give direct input to inform the board and district leadership. Superintendent Hendrick.
Thank you. So you can do so in a couple ways. We have the posters outside where you can write sticky notes and give feedback there. This QR code also has the same questions. And essentially we're asking questions around specifically the arts. What's working well in partnerships? What could be improved? What's working well in school day programming? What could be improved? What's working well in sort of the after school and summer programs? What could be improved? We do want specific feedback on those ideas that have been generated by the community and teachers on how to improve the arts. I gave you those specific ones. And then there's a couple posters and questions as you go to here on just anything related to the district you can give feedback on in there as well. We do summarize these, and we put a summary of it on the internet for folks to take a look and look at. Our board takes a look at it. Obviously, I do as well. And so that opportunity now exists out there in here. And as I mentioned earlier, before I pass it back to Dr. Lucas, the board and myself are here to talk individually as needed.
All right, that includes our session. Thank you so much. And one more comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to go back to that last question about South County. It concerns me if there's a perception out there that this is a slight on South County. I live and work and my kids go to school in South County. We have another board member who's also a South County resident, and it is a place that we wholly and completely advocate for. And I think, we know that these schools that are affected, again, they were in state oversight a number of years ago, so they were given these additional periods, given additional funds because they were struggling. We have made incredible gains at these schools. They are no longer in that kind of academic situation, I do not see this as a reduction in funds, and by all means, talk with me afterwards, but from my math lens, I don't see this as a reduction in funds at those schools. I see it as an alignment of funds. So if all other 14 high schools are at this, again, this 85.7% model, and these 4 schools or 5 are at a 75% model, why does that make sense? I want someone to tell me why that should be the case. So I see it as an alignment, but I in no way see this as a reduction of South County or anti-Title I. I do this work because I care about those kids, and I just wanted to talk about that if you want to talk further as far as that perception. It's the first time I've heard that, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your attendance tonight, and please leave your feedback, and we appreciate your engagement and input tonight. Thank you.